All right. So I'm going to start off. Melanie's going to be speaking as well. How you doing, Melanie?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Okay, so I'm going to start it off with the our know, like, trust section. And so, you know, anytime we have a speaker, I have them do the preamble, which is the know, like, trust section. And the reason I call it that is because it's really important to build rapport, and we're going to talk about that later. Build rapport with your clients and get them to know, like, and trust you. And as we know, as financial types, it's a little harder for us to, you know, engage in a small talk conversation, or at least it is for me. And I've seen that quite often. So it's something that you should work on, and we should all work on together. And this gives us an opportunity to do that. So, okay, so this is me. I'm from Illinois originally, even though I'm out in Denver today now. 2 brothers and 3 sisters. I'm the second oldest. My mother is Serbian and my father is English. I'm an Eagle Scout, and I worked my way through college as a cook, gas station attendant, and a house painter. This is my family. This is my 2 sons and daughter, and that's when she graduated Marine boot camp. And that's my wife, Mary Ellen. So as a hobby, I like to do woodworking. And so this is a canoe that I made out of an old deck that I found on the side of the road. These are some surfboards that I made for my children, and they're made out of an old redwood picnic table. Okay, this next slide, these are my 2 favorite people in the world. These are my 2 grandsons. And I've kind of moved from making big wooden boats to making a toy wooden boat that's actually radio controlled, and I call this my grandson magnet. So that's the purpose of that boat. So this is my background. I've been mostly in manufacturing my career. I've been for the last 7 years or so in solar. So I started off at Zenith Electronics way back in 1980. Then I went on to Thompson Industries, and that's actually where I learned how to be a fractional CFO, because we had 15 divisions located all over the world, and my job was the CFO, COO. So, you know, I was working with 15 different companies all the time. And so when I went out to ended up doing fractional work, it was pretty easy for me to handle 4 or 5 because I was handling 15. These are, you know, solar companies I worked at. This is a company that I started with an inventor, and it's an escape respirator. So I've got I have a patent around how to make them. And then I started Forecaster, which is my FP&A software, which is for QuickBooks users. And so this is me. I'm a CFO, COO type. I've done fractional work for the last 20 years. And I've worked at over 100 companies. So I'm a CPA, MBA. These funny initials here are on the manufacturing side. So I'm a Lean Six Sigma black belt and a certified production inventory management, and I'm an Eagle Scout. So I'm going to segue over into my presentation now. Just a minute, I just want to see who's here. All right. Welcome, everybody. So you can see this, right? Presentation? Yes? Okay.
Yep.
All right. So what I'm going to, this meeting and a bunch of future meetings, to get really good content and to help everybody. Some of you guys have seen some of my other presentations where I have a bunch of resources and all. One of the resources that I have on there is this book. It's called, I don't know, can you see the book? Yeah. So Selling Professional Services the Sandler Way. So I am a Sandler sales graduate. And, so one of the training things that I had to go through was, for sales, networking, speaking, doing presentations. So marketing myself, positioning myself. So over the years, I've learned all of these tools. And so I am not a professional Sandler trainer. They're out there. And, to get trained to sell the Sandler way, it's like, $4,000 or $5,000 for a year. So, but I want to give everybody here a orientation and initiation into what it is, and strongly recommend that you get the book. But I'm going to hopefully over the course of the next, say, 4 or 5 meetings, do some 15-minute snippets of it, where I'll give you ideas on what I've learned and how I've interpreted it into what I do as a fractional CFO. So you get some stories behind it and why it's important. And so you can see the tagline on there here is, nobody ever told me I'd have to sell. We all know that one of the hardest things as a fractional CFO is to find clients, find prospects. And when you do, you want to be able to close them a really high percentage of the time, because it's so hard and so time consuming, it's so emotional to actually find a client, that you don't want to screw it up just because you don't know how to close the deal. So that's what we're going to kind of focus on here. And this is an extension of what we've been doing, where, Melanie talked to you about, positioning yourself, like what are you? What is your product? That's positioning yourself. And then, we talked about LinkedIn last time, basically how to mine for prospects. We're going to have another speaker next month that is one of the people that I had consult with me to learn how to position myself even better and basically execute my marketing plan. So she taught me a lot about how to do it. I spent a year with her. It was very worthwhile. But anyway, so she's going to talk next week in one of our sections. So I'm going to talk, let me just tell you a little bit about Sandler Sales Training. So it was founded by a guy named David Sandler. That's the name. And it was developed over 70 years ago, a long time ago. This guy is like in the 50s is when he started doing this. But he was one of the first to actually try to understand what customer behaviors had to do with selling, and basically how to really professionalize it. And so, it's all based on customer buying behaviors. We all encounter salespeople all the time, and I knew I had to sell. It was a hard reality of becoming a fractional CFO, but I didn't want to be a I don't know what the best word I could think of is a slimy salesperson. So I didn't want to be that. I wanted to be professional about it and figure out how to do it. And this Sandler really resonated with me in that way. So it allows you to sell without selling. People want to they want to buy without being sold, as the saying goes. And so it really helps you do that. And so why a sales system? So they have a system. I'm going to go into their system in just a minute, what it's all about. And you'll understand it even better then. But you know, you want to qualify very well. So you don't want to you don't want to go down a lot of blind alleys when you're selling. You know, I get a lot of people that I tell them what I do, and they say I need your services. And then when I start getting underneath it, I find out they really don't need me, and I'm not going to try to fit a square peg into a round hole. It just doesn't work. So the next thing is you want to efficiently identify and engage new prospects. So, you know, one of the things that happens on LinkedIn all the time, and I'm sure everybody's experienced this more than they care to, somebody wants to connect with you, you connect, the next thing pops up a message that says, you really should buy our product because we do this, 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 and this. And that's not what you want, you know, that's not networking. They're just using LinkedIn the wrong way. And we learned a lot about that last month. So you don't want to be that kind of salesperson. And, you know, I have it all the time where people want to network with me and then they want me to basically be their salesperson. Well, if you take my product into your clients, you'll get a profit percentage of that. Sometimes that might be, you know, interesting, but I always tell them, look, if I'm going to sell your product to my customer or to my client, I don't want any money for it. I'm going to do it because it's the right thing to do, not because you're going to pay me money. So then control the development process and keep it moving forward. You know, I just got off the phone with one of my partners in a separate business other than my fractional work. And we're selling EV carport charging stations. That's what the company is. And I'm a partner in that with they're actually one of my clients. We formed a separate joint venture, and they don't know how to sell. You know, we've had, in the last 2 months, we had like 15 people raise their hand on from our social media marketing that we're doing. It's actually email marketing. And then they, you know, we've got 6 or 7 that are still hot, very hot prospects. And they've just like disappeared because these guys don't know how to do sales. And so, you know, the conversation we just had, I told them, I said, look, we have to be really honest with ourselves that we're not good salesmen as a company. So we have to figure out how to be that. Because, you know, the whole idea behind the Sandler Sales system or any other sales system is so that once you get a client on the line, they don't start ghosting you. And I'll explain more about that as we go along, how to stay away from that happening to you. So basically that's controlling the development process to keep it moving forward. And you remove the prospect stalls and objections from the landscape. So, you know, what we've been doing as this company is we've been doing everything incorrectly. And so I told them, you know, we're going to have a meeting once a week where we go over how we're handling things because this isn't working. So this is the Sandler submarine. And this is where the process comes in very strongly. So you see, I don't know if you can read that real well, but the first one is building rapport. So remember what I just said earlier when I did the know, like, and trust situation? That's building rapport with everybody. So why is it that I should be listening to you? And, you know, why, you know, I already don't like you because you're a salesperson. So now you have to go a bit over that hurdle and be able to get going along with that. And then the next one is upfront contracts. And that's where you keep the process moving very well. So for example, when you're doing upfront contracts, you're saying, okay, you know, I'm going to give you this quote tomorrow. you'll take a look at it, and then we'll talk about it the next day. So that's an upfront contract. And you say, so is it okay for me to call you on Tuesday and go over it with you? And then the rest, so that's really the most critical one, by the way, these first two actually. And then you get into their pain. Why is it that they're bringing you on? And, you know, I know a lot of you are fractional CFOs. And like I said the other day, nobody has ever hired me unless they had a major problem with their business. And so once you understand their pain and the kind of things you can do to fix it, it gets a lot easier. What's their budget? Who's going to make the decision? Fulfillment, and then post. So in other words, doing what you said and then post sell. So the reason they call it a submarine is because you're not supposed to go to the next section without closing this hatch. Otherwise, like on a submarine, water would come in. And so you're constantly going from one section of the submarine to the other, but you can't go to the next one until you've fulfilled and gone through the first one. Okay, the next one is nobody ever told me I'd have to sell. So, and this is what you hear. I hear this all the time, by the way. People come to these meetings, and some of you have been to a lot of these meetings, so you heard it as well. Where do I find my clients? It's hard. And, you know, I was just at a meeting on Tuesday. Some of you were at that, where one of the guys asked a really good question, because we were talking about networking. And his question was something like, well, where do I find a networking meeting where there's clients? And the answer is there is no such thing. There's no such thing as a fractional CFO networking exchange. You know, it just doesn't exist. And so you have to get really good as a marketer, networker, trying to uncover what path is going to lead you to clients, where will they come from, what are some good referral partners, and start building that whole network around you. And then there's this next one, which is I work and then I have to find clients, and it's a never-ending cycle. So, you know, there's many types of I'll call it part-time, non-full-time CFO work. And some of you do different things, but I never did. Well, I did one time. I did project work, and that's a whole nother story. But I don't do project work because it's exactly that. Because there's no way to sell the project. They're going to want you there full-time doing the project, and then you walk out the other end, you have a total, completely empty pipeline. So I prefer to do true fractional work where a fraction of my time every week is spent with a particular client. And so I never fill up that bucket with just work. I fill up that bucket with enough work, and then I'm constantly out networking and trying to find ways to build clients. So, you know, this came out of the book, most commonly utilized plans for selling or winging it or flying by the seat of your pants. And like I said earlier, and everybody here knows this, once you get a client that's a prospect, you definitely don't want to wing it. You want to be able to say, I can close, you know, 75, 80, 85% of the deals once I get a viable prospect in front of me. And then developing business provides you with the opportunity to do the work you enjoy doing, which I don't know about you, but I love doing fractional CFO work. I'm really good at what I do. People should just know to call me when they need something. This is the way I started being a fractional CFO. I ended up losing a job, and so I got a client. You know, I was kind of like half between a small company CFO and a large company CFO. And so I got a client, and then I had to go find another one. And my literal position in my mind was, well, of course you should hire me. I'm Jeff. But that worked in the company I was working at that had 2,000 people, but it didn't work out there in the rest of the world where I was totally unknown and, not a brand. Okay, so this is what I was talking about earlier. There's a bunch of different types of fractional CFO work that's out there. So there's the independent fractional CFO, which is what I really prefer. There's a fractional CFO that runs a group. I tried that. I hated it. A lot of people like it, where they have people working for them. I've met many of them, and they're very successful. But I really I want to do the work. A fractional CFO that works for a group, so it's kind of the flip side of this one up here. So they hire people, and so that's a pretty rewarding model. But again, I do this because I don't really like working for other people. I like working for myself. Fractional CFO franchise. I've met a lot of people that are, were B2B CFO, and I forgot some of the other names, but it works for them. It's a good thing. It helps them with their branding, but they don't go out and find you customers. You got to find your own customer, but you have a brand behind you. And then these are the two that I don't do at all. We never do. Contract CFO, where you're like an interim person, or contract project work, where basically you're a consultant, because then you get into that cycle of, I worked 6 months, now I don't have anything. I work another, then I'm off for 3 months, then I work 6 months, then I don't have anything. So I don't like it. The work is usually pretty good, but I don't go that route. Okay. So I want to spend probably another 10 minutes going over some stories. Before I do that, does anybody have any questions that have come up as I've been doing a lot of talking here? Oh, we have a B2B CFO right here, Jed. So Jed, real quick, tell us what you like about it.
Well, so I tried the fractional CFO on my own about 4 or 5 years ago for about a year and a half, and had limited success just because I'd always been a CFO. So sales and business development was not really my expertise.
Yep.
So I got some jobs. I did end up at one point taking an interim role, which actually kind of worked out because at first it was 40, but then it quickly moved down to about 20 hours a week, because really they just needed some processes put in place that were then easier but regardless, the reason I went with B2B CFO was because of the training and business development, and it was pretty good training. And then also the network with other B2B CFO partners. Because when I was on my own, it was just me and anybody I could find to talk to. But the partners at B2B CFO are really great, and they will talk with you anytime about anything, help you out any way you need. So you have a vast source of knowledge.
There you go. So you can see there's a bunch of ways to skin the cat as far as being a fractional CFO. And it works different ways for different people. So Mark Blackton is a fractional guy. As a matter of fact, Mark, you want to talk a little bit about how you teach fractional to people?
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. Yes, I'm. It's just amazing when I see what you do and how we've come to the same conclusions about the right type of work to do over the years. The fractional leadership or fractional CFO position is really, really rewarding. And over the years, I have 4 clients sort of consistently. I'm never really looking for work. It's exactly the way you explained it. So it's good. But what we did find is all of those problems of finding work and knowing how to get involved in the fractional business. And my partner and I, Brendan Filbert, who happened to be a Sandler trainer for many years, by the way, She's been a business development coach for many, many years. And we developed a class, an online class called Freeway to Fractional. And it's 4 modules that go through a step-by-step process of how to determine what your product is, how to make sure that there's a market for it, how to market it, what the administrative side of what your business should look like, how to decide whether you want to go with a CFO group or another fractional service group or a consulting group, all the way through launching your business and getting it beyond time for hours, time for dollars. Getting away from that rat race is something that we should all aspire to, and we should be paid for our value we create and not just the hours we put in. So we have this class, and if you're interested in that, please just maybe drop your contact information in the chat, and I'll get back with you. But it's called Freeway to Fractional, and we're kicking it off here in the next. We've been through a beta in 3 groups, and everyone that has participated in it raves about it. And our basic promise is we'll get you to consistent revenues 6 to 12 months sooner than if you didn't have our class. And that's proven out over and over again.
Yep. Yeah, when I met Mark and they told me what they were doing, it was like, gee, I wish I'd known you 20 years ago. I had to go through it the hard way. It was like, every time I turned around, I hit another wall of the stuff I had to learn. And so I didn't even know the path. I just bumped my way through the path of getting there.
Well, we all know that everyone that goes into this business has the capability to be successful. They've been hardworking, they've been an executive, but you don't know what you don't know. Yeah. And just avoiding 1 or 2 of these walls will save you thousands of dollars in developing your business. And we're really excited about what we have. And it's all been professionally put together. It's 4 modules and 20 classes, so it's not just here you go. And I will tell you that after you get through the second module, if you don't think it's worth it, we have a money back guarantee on it.
All right. Anybody else have any questions or anything at this point? If not, I'm going to continue.
Well, I'd like to just make one comment. I know Mark. We're here in the Kansas City area, and I just actually started that Freeway to Fractional and going through the first module, and really like what I'm going through because it's helping me to understand leaving the CFO corporate world, now transitioning into this. So I've got positives to say so far.
All right, nice.
Thank you.
Did you bring him in here, Mark?
He's a ringer. Social proof.
Yes, nice. Okay, all right. So I'm gonna keep going. Okay. So these are a bunch of stories, and Suzanne is here she worked with me at Bright Power. So just don't go too far with the story when I tell it to you. But so the first one was Gary's Plastics. So a lot of this is like a journey through time. Some of them came in before I did Sandler, and again, like I learned a lot of this through the School of Hard Knocks. But Gary Plastics, I hired a team of cold callers for like $20 an hour. I didn't have a lot of money, and they weren't really great, but they took my list and I gave them a pitch, and they called, and they actually got me some work. I was pretty amazed. But anyway, this guy, Gary Plastics, so I went down there. I was on Long Island. He was in Brooklyn at his company. And I go in, and we were talking, and, he goes, yeah, he was a real jerk, and he liked to be a jerk. And he goes, yeah, so you think you can fix fix my process and fix my, my financials? I said, yeah, I'm pretty sure I could. Now this is, again, I didn't qualify him. I didn't ask any questions. I just wanted his business. And so I said, sure, I can do it. He goes, all right, well, here's what we'll do. So he took total control over the whole sales process. And he said, all right, here's what we'll do. You work for me for a week. And I had a person working with me. And if you two can't, you think you can fix it. If you can't fix it in a week, then I don't have to pay you. I said, all right, I'll take that, because I didn't know. And so we worked hard, and we came up with a bunch of stuff, and I was pretty proud of what I did in a week. And so I brought it into him, and he goes, no, you didn't do it. I'm not going to pay you. I'm like, what? You're not going to pay me for what I just did? No, I'm not going to pay you. And so I knew enough at that point to tell him, well, then I'm going to leave. He goes, no, you can't quit. I said, yeah, I'm going to leave. You don't want to pay me. I'm leaving. I'm not coming back. No. And he literally chased me out the door, because I left the place with this screaming guy, red-faced, yelling at me. Nobody quits me. You can't quit. Nobody quits me. So anyway, that was my Gary Plastic story. And, so sales gets a little goofy at times. The next one was AFCO Systems. So on this one, I actually did pretty well with this one. I went in, and so I got referred, and it was a family shop, a bunch of brothers. And so I was referred in, and I said, okay, we started talking. They go, and by the way, I had been fully Sandler trained at this point. And they said, hey, what we need you for is we need you to help us raise money. And so I said, well, let me look at your numbers. And I asked them a bunch of questions. And I said, you know what? You're not going to be able to get a loan with this business. It was underwater, and they told me they needed it to get to the next, lily pad in their journey. And I said, nobody's going to loan you money for this. And so, they were a little bit disappointed, obviously. And I said, but you know what? I'll tell you what I'll do. If you want to bring me on, I'll help you get your company to the point where you can borrow money. And so they said, okay, that's a good thought. That's a good idea. So I came back in the next Monday to get started, and they brought me into the conference room, and they said, and there was the three brothers, and it was like a disaster. Something was really wrong. I said, what's going on? You guys look like somebody died. And they said, we're going out of business. I said, what do you mean you're going out of business? Yep, we just lost a big order. They pushed it out 6 months, and that's what we were hoping for to get to the next step. And I said, all right, how about this? I'll do one thing for you. Let me take your books home with me over the weekend. So, I just did a bunch of downloads and got a bunch of information and put it into my Excel model that I use for forecasting companies and really understanding. And I came back in the next day, or the following week, and I said, all right, I got some good news for you guys. You're not going to go out of business unless you want to. And they said, what does that mean? I said, well, here's the deal. 75% of your costs are people costs, and the rest is material costs. So all you have to do is cut back people. And, I've been in manufacturing for a really long time. And so I gave them a restructuring chart, and they did it. They hired me. It was one of my best clients. I ended up helping them sell their company, helping them put it together. And, once we did the restructuring, they never looked back, took all the pressure off. They started selling, they started getting out there. We started getting the group together. So that was one of my better experiences in selling and in being a fractional CFO. This next one, just this is a story from, I think, last Tuesday. You know, I have this forecaster system that hooks into QuickBooks, and it's a, you know, it's an FP&A and budgeting system that I had written that mimics the Excel-based model that I always use at all my different clients. And one of the things they teach you at Sandler is to, if you think there's something wrong, ask the question, you know, if you weren't going to buy from me, what would that reason be? So that's one of the key Sandler points. So I get through this whole thing, I do the demo, you know, I'm trying to get them excited, and I could tell there was something not quite right, but, you know, basically I chickened out and I didn't ask the question, and I've never heard from them again. So, you know, even after you've been doing this, I've been doing it for 20 years. It's such a difficult thing to do sales and to, you know, put yourself on the line and ask the questions that you don't necessarily want to ask. And so, you know, I lost the sale, and I don't know why I lost the sale, what exactly happened during that process. And I didn't have a chance to try to save that sale. Okay, Bright Power. You know, so one of the things that I talk about in my fractional CFO journey is the things that I did and do for business development. And one of the things on there is to answer ads for CFOs and try and convince them that they really need a fractional CFO. And so I can tell you this, it kind of worked at Bright Power, but it never worked any other time. So it's something you should go jump on. But at Bright Power, I went in and you know, their ad was in the FANG newsletter that I just happened to read. I don't read them all, but I just happened to read this one. And I said, oh, I know all this stuff. You know, this is what I do. And so I went in, you know, they had Salesforce and they were in solar, and it was all the stuff that I knew. So I went into the guy and pitched him on doing it kind of as consulting, as a fractional CFO rather than being a full-time CFO. And he actually kind of, so I sold him on me, but I didn't sell him on the fractional CFO. But he did offer me a really good job with equity, with bonus, that, you know, with everything that I wanted. So I ended up, you know, in my other story, and some of you guys heard this on Tuesday, I ended up closing down my fractional CFO work at that point. And I said to myself, all right, I'm going to just ride this out. I'm 60 years old. I'm going to ride it out. I'm going to retire as a full-time CFO. I'm done. Everything's too hard. This is a great opportunity. I'm just going to go this route. So that's the Bright Power story. That didn't work out real well for a lot of reasons. You know, it was one of those things where I could not figure out the equation to get the CEO to do the right thing. So it didn't work. And just at the time that I was figuring out that it wasn't going to work, and, you know, the place was pretty stressful because they didn't have a lot of cash. All of a sudden I got this phone call from this company that I'm working for now. And it was from a fund that owned a company that was kind of in trouble. You know, they were just starting to grow. You know, they didn't have a lot of cash. They were pulling cash from the fund. The fund didn't like that. And they wanted me to come out and fix the company, and then maybe in 4 or 5 years, get it ready for sale. And so since I had already kind of decided I was going to go out as a CFO and not as a fractional CFO, you know, I said, why not? This other company I'm at right now is failing. I got more equity. in the pivot company, and it was a better salary, and it was in Colorado. So I got to leave Long Island. So it was, like a triple win. And so what happened though was when I was doing the sales with the guy at the fund, I talked to the guy, I was told by the recruiter they had like 5 guys lined up. And so I gave the guy, I did the whole thing. I found his pain, listened to him, told him how I could, what I knew how to do, correlated that with what I've done for the last 20 some years. I did everything right, because it was almost like there was no pressure, because if I didn't do it, I was still okay. I didn't really like what I was doing, but I was still okay. And so I just went with it and did all my Sandler stuff. And literally within 20 minutes of getting off the phone with this guy from the fund, the guy from the recruiting office called me and said, I don't know what you said to these guys, but they told me to shut everybody else down. You're the only candidate, you got the job, and you just have to go out to Colorado and meet with the CEO, and it's a done deal. So you never know how any of the sales stuff is going to kick in. Oops, sorry. But anyway, so that's the pivot story. And I'll give you the punchline to the pivot story. 2 weeks. So I remember I was going to come out here for 5 years and, have a nice job, get the company ready for sale over the next 5 years. 2 weeks after I started, the SEC shut down the fund and told them they had to sell in a fire sale all of their assets. And so all of a sudden, my 5-year time frame turned into like a 12-month time frame, but all is well. So anyway, that's the end for today. We'll have more as we go through the next few months.
Jeff, I
Right.
want to comment on that. We think that getting a job is where we're going to have all the security. If you hear what Matt says all the time, when you have a job, you're just between searches. If you have 4 clients, who cares if one goes out of business, right? You don't have all your eggs in one basket. You have control of your lifestyle. And I can't tell you how many really nice offers I've had to walk away from because I've done exactly what you've done before, which is, well, I'll go try this. And it's 6 months, 12 months later, you're back and starting all over, and you're calling your clients that love you and saying, yeah, I know I quit, but do you want me back?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just a lot easier just to stick with the security of your own group of clients and adding one at a time. And again, it's the having all your eggs in one basket thing is just much. It's more secure in so many ways. And if you really do your math, you don't need to work more than 15 or 20 hours a week. I mean, it depends on how, if you have kids at home and whatnot, but if I work 15 hours a week chargeable, I'm doing really well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyway, that's my comment on that.
No, yeah, and it's a good comment. I mean, that's one of the things in my presentation. I relearned why I don't like working for somebody else.
Yes.
Yeah. So the other side though was I was kind of reacting to my wife because for the last 15 years she's been while I was doing fractional work, she's been asking me when I'm going to go get a real job. So I thought, oh, okay, this is all too easy. I'll just ride it out. But no. Anyway, like I said, I love doing it, and so I'm happy to be here. And this is all part of my fractional CFO 2.0. This whole meeting and the way I'm doing things now. All right, so I'm going to turn it over to Melanie. So Melanie and I this book here, the TED Talks book. So I've always aspired to be a TED Talks person. I'm not sure if I ever will, but it's one of my bucket list things to be able to do something like that. And so she told me about this book. So I read the book. It's really good. And so, Melanie's presented here before, and this helps her with her presentation skills, just like it helps me with my presentation skills. And so she's going to start walking us through the TED Talk book starting now.
Thanks, Jeff.
So you should be able to share.
I just need to figure out what. It's asking me to share.
You got it?
So it has a bunch of screens and all of them are white, and I'm just gonna click on one and see what pops up.
Yeah, we'll roll with you. Don't worry. Worst case is you could email it to me.
I might do that, and it's because it's not letting me share anything.
Really?
I'm
Wonderful.
also on a loaner computer, so
Oh, okay.
I had to like re-download Zoom and everything. But the good news is that this is
By the way, I know how to edit this out of the recording.
okay. Great, thank you.
Yeah.
The great news is the loaner doesn't have Microsoft either, so it's a Google slide.
All right, I can do that. I'm bilingual. So where are you sending it? Jeff
I
P,
sent
or-
it to your pivot email.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
So while this is getting set up, I forget what it is, the getting to know you, building rapport slide is just one, so I can talk through it. Hi, I'm Melanie. I am a marketer and brand strategist, and I started in basically events and conferences, running different restaurants, and kind of honed sales techniques there, but wanted to do more, and ended up in sales and marketing, which has been great. Other things that I do are more like, they all kind of relate to behavior. So I like culture development, and I'm a painter, which doesn't have to do a lot with behavior other than myself. And I currently reside in Denver, but I grew up as a military brat. So I've lived in, I think, 7 different states and a different country. And my whole family's dispersed, so we get around all over the place.
I don't have it.
You don't?
Nope.
Mm.
Can you put the link in the chat?
No, I sent it to your email. Oh, I can
know.
put it in the chat, absolutely.
Yeah, it's not coming through.
Okay. Yeah, let me.
Okay, I got
Okay.
that. All righty. We're in business.
All right. Great. So that's my know me slide. Yeah, so I'm a marketer and brand strategist, do culture development and leadership coaching, which is something that I've been doing more recently over the last few years. I've always liked pulling out people's individual strengths and kind of letting them shine. So I've had a real knack for that, and I started to volunteer in different groups of coaching. I'm a painter. There's some paintings down in the bottom corner. One of them is, I like to do surrealist stuff, and then I also like to do things with actual physical flowers. So these like non-objective things. Something that I find interesting about my art compared to my friend Kate's art is that my friend Kate is very type B and unorganized in her life. I am very type A and keep everything in spreadsheets and make to-do lists. Her art is very structured. Mine is very not. And then, yeah, aspiring organizational behavior professional, or not professional, but expert. So this is the book. And the book itself is how to give a TED talk, or how to give some sort of meaningful talk. I inspire people to, I don't know, inspire people. So there's 4 different sections in it, which will break out, and I'm going to cover the foundational section today. So you could go to the next slide, which is, these are the main things. So we're going to go over presentation literacy, how to build an idea, some common traps of presenting styles that you want to avoid, and then basically your point, the through line. So presentation literacy. This is why talks matter. So talks can inspire, motivate, inform people. They can create alignment around some sort of idea. And even if you have to deliver bad news, most people are looking for some guidance in some sort of way. And lots of people, when you think about a talk, you think about these like great talks that have like really rallied somebody around, or like a group of people, or even a nation. And that's one of the reasons it's so terrifying, is because we're putting a lot of pressure on ourselves to have that kind of impact. So next slide. And it's okay, you're not alone. Everybody's afraid to give talks. With all this pressure you've built up, a lot of people will think that it's very lasting. And I think there, in the book it says this, but then it's also like quoted lots of other places, where people are afraid of public speaking more than they're afraid of dying. So like people would literally rather die than give a speech. And it's all right. If everybody's afraid, then that's okay. And people are also, I know we as Americans tend to like underdog stories. So you can use you being nervous as a little bit of an advantage. If if you naturally kind of get up and you're like, oh, I'm a little nervous, like people are going to be rooting for you. They want you to succeed, and will be empathetic. And oh yeah, that's the underdog slide right there. One of my favorite, underdogs, Danielson. Very happy that is on Netflix. It's funny, but yeah. So they want to see you succeed. The next one is what makes a good talk, and that is a good idea. So ideas are what should be communicated. And once somebody has some sort of idea, or if you have an idea, nobody can really take that away from you. It's how people are seeing the world. It gives perspective, maybe some sort of like kind of a common learning in life, but seen through a different lens can bring things out to light. So yeah, the mission for every speaker is to take something that matters deeply to you or that idea, and you're trying to rebuild it or recreate it in somebody's head. And one of the ways that you can do that is through storytelling and or through language, really. And this is something that we've used as people since ancient civilization. So part of the book talks about anthropologists, and they study different societies, and what their day talks were more about like economics or like how their group was doing. But at night, they found that they really just communicated things through stories. So our brains may have also adapted to pick up on stories and to be able to process them. And there's a whole section that we'll get into next time about storytelling, but it's through language that we really can communicate these ideas. And something that he does in the book, I think it's really interesting. He's like, so everybody here, just take a second, and I want you to imagine an elephant that is spotted with red and blue polka dots and standing on one leg and balancing a ball. And everybody has that image in their head right now. And so just implanted this idea to you. So you can take language to be able to inform. Here's how you don't want to do it. So I know we just talked about sales a lot, and I don't know the Sandler way, but I'm going to assume that this also is in that. It's don't want a straight sales pitch. People, if you're trying to sell them something, there's like an automatic wall that's put up between you and your audience, and people feel kind of taken advantage of. I'm sure we've all been on some sort of webinar, especially in the past like few years, where everything was a webinar, where you get in and you think you're going to learn something useful, and then really it's just their product over and over and over again. They're not giving you any sort of insight at all or reason why you should work with them. So you're not going to want to do a sales pitch. And good selling, you're not really doing a sales pitch anyway. You're figuring out what are those pain points, and then giving knowledge. The other one is called the ramble, and that's where you're pretty underprepared, or they give it examples of, so I was driving here today, and on my way here, I thought blah, blah, blah. And people get annoyed with that. You're telling your audience that their time wasn't as important as yours. You didn't take the time to prepare for your speech. So always be prepared, no matter how good your idea is, or whatever your visuals are. You want to make sure that you are delivering on that idea. The next trap is called they call it the org board, or the org bore. And that's what's really exciting in your organization and to your people is pretty boring outside of it. So you don't want to tell them like what really you did, or you want to talk about what you discovered, not how you did it. So you could take your whole team through a process, and it might have been exhilarating while you're doing it, but the learning out of it is what is going to resonate more with people than the actual like how to. Another way to think about that organizational bore is my friend's daughter, when she was 7 or 8, considered me her best friend. And I was like in my 20s or so, and she would call me every day after school and tell me her entire day. Like I woke up and I ate this and I went to school and this is who I talked to. And it was this linear path of her entire day. And it was a lot to sit through, but I did it. So then the other one is having all style and no substance. So this is where you may have like studied a lot of speakers, or you found some sort of talk track or something that somebody else used, and you're using all of the tools, but you aren't communicating anything relevant or meaningful to anybody. And I think that's more of like confusion that sets in with the audience. So the style with no substance one, just to talk about that a little bit more, that what made settle for me is I worked somewhere that this one person gave a lot of speeches, and they still do, and I hear them sometimes, but he talked very slowly, and I think it was a style that he was trying to emulate, because he wanted everything that he said to sound very meaningful, but it wasn't genuine. So he lost a lot of people while he was talking, and it never really sat, and still doesn't sit well with people, because he's not, if you ever meet this person, that's not how he is at all. But anytime he speaks publicly, it's like very slow, lots of pauses, like wants you to feel something that's just kind of not there. Okay. Through line. So this is the how you'll organize your talk is around this through line. So what are you trying to say? What's the whole point? So you need to make a plan, and on that plan, you want to make sure that everything else is connecting to your through line, and you want to figure out what you want people to take away from your talk. Let me go, sorry, get my notes here for a second. So what a through line is not, it's not chronological. And another way of thinking of like chronology is, most people, if you're explaining your house, or a lot of people, if they're trying to explain some sort of interior, they take you through their walking path. So they're like, when you enter the door, there's a room, and to the left, there's this other door, and to the right, there's a closet. In people's brains, that doesn't sit well visually. Like, a better way to describe a room is to say, the house is structured like a rectangle, and it's divided, the first third is one big room, and the last is divided into 3 sections. So you're getting an overview, and then you can talk about the rooms. You don't have to take people down the physical path that you went through to figure out what your through line is. And also, a through line isn't a topic. So something that has been pointed out to me recently with like, I don't know if I want to be a TED speaker, but maybe I want to write like a blog that is kind of meaningful and unique. And I've been thinking, like, you know, what is an idea, or what is a concept that I have that would be interesting, or a new perspective? And that is like how art school actually made me better at business. And so the topic in that would be art school, but I don't need to tell you exactly what I did in art school for that through line to connect all of the pieces. And another key to understanding where you're connecting in your through line should sit is to really know your audience. So if you're going to be talking to children about your topic, or some doctors, like, you can tailor your idea, or how they're going to take in information is going to be a little bit different. You're probably not going to want to talk like about the shared economy and how great Uber is to a group of taxi drivers. You know, like you want to communicate your idea appropriately to your audience. Some other things are information overload. This I do think about, Jeff. So one of the first times I wanted to present to our company, I needed to teach them really what marketing could do in the organization. And I know a lot of information about marketing and how it works. If you have this idea, you're going to know a lot of information about how it works. You want to really focus on what do you want them to take away from it? Because if you start to teach them how to do what you do or how you know it, you're going to lose them. It's going to be too much information. They're kind of going to lose the concept. They might remember one piece of how you did it, but then missed your point. So you want to make sure that you're sticking to your one main idea. And then another thing that they warned about is if you're talking about something heavy, try not to make it a doomsday case. Frame it in the what could be possible. So the way I take that is, our company's expanding right now and we're growing and we're implementing new IT. And as we're onboarding people, they're like, let me learn about your process. Well, the process is being built. So in some cases I could be like, well, there's no process. Or they could be like, oh, that's great, is that you get to help shape that process. And I 100% believe like that is very motivating to me. So keeping it on the what could be possible often moves people more than the doomsday. And then the next or the final is, once you have all of this, you want to practice it with different people. If you can communicate your idea to a person, you can communicate it to a group. If you can talk to your friends over dinner, you can have a good talk and implant an idea. So it's really staying genuine, having a well-formed idea, and being able to make that stick with people. And that's the summary of the first part of this book.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So the question to everybody here, this isn't like a meeting where necessarily, Jeff and Melanie teach you guys everything. So remember what I said, Melanie is learning how to do presentations, and talk to groups. That's an intentional part of her journey right now. And so I said, I know her, and I said, all right, why don't you come to my group and give a presentation? That's how it all started. And so if anybody here wants to practice doing something, doing a presentation, giving a talk, you are more than welcome to pick a topic. Take, you'll get like 20 minutes, 25 minutes to do it. It could be on just about anything related to our world. It could even be anything as simple as, I have this one client that's, that I wanted, it's a great story. I want to share it with everybody. And so what you get to do is you get to practice making the presentation. You get to practice telling stories. And just like Melanie just said in that, practice is really key. I'm out there giving presentations all the time. And every time I do one, I try to make it better than the last one. And I learn, you guys give me feedback. It makes it fun for me. I'd love to hear your stories. So like Michelle, what is your story?
I'm an immigrant, as you can hear. That's my story. So sort of my standard joke is I'm obviously not from Brooklyn, and I live in New York City, and I do the fractional CFO work that you do, but I focus on small owner-managed creative businesses as opposed to more sort of the corporate stuff. I was part of the corporate world many years ago, but now I found my niche, the creative crowd.
Yeah. Yeah, and so, I'm also, it'll help you to volunteer and talk about something here at this meeting, by the way. It just helps. It helps a lot.
Thank you. I will definitely take you up on the offer.
All right, good. Just let me know.
I will.
So is it Disha? So what's your world all about? We can't hear you.
This better?
Yeah, that's perfect.
So I'm a small business advisor and fractional CFO. So I do both general small business advising as well as fractional CFO work. And I work with a group called Cultivate Advisors. So I'm a previous small business owner of many years, 18 years in a family-run business. I exited end of last year after being CFO and business administrator there, and decided to go into a fractional role to use my experience to help small businesses who are industry experts in the $0.5 to $5 million range.
Nice. That sounds like a really cool story. Would you mind?
It is.
Yeah, how'd you like to come to the next meeting and spend 10, 15 minutes telling your story?
Sure. Yeah, I love it.
Okay, and so remember, give us your know, like, and trust section. Pictures are good. And then
Yeah.
the rest, just tell us what your journey has been. It's always fun to hear about it.
Yeah. Can you send me an email with that? Your form that you'd like?
Sure.
Put my email in the chat for you.
What is it?
I'll put my email in the chat, and I also have to jump right at 5 because I have a meeting I've got to be in at 5.
So do I. So. Oh, there it is. Okay. All right. Nope. Okay, I got it. All right, so we really do have to go. So hopefully we'll see you all next month. It's gonna be fun and exciting. All right, see you
Thank
later.
you.
Thanks again.
Thank you, Jeff.
Hey,
Great
thank you.
meeting, guys.
Bye-bye.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks so much.